Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All Iowa podcast. We are your hosts, JD and Keith. Welcome back to another week. NCAA tournament time, especially good for the women. Men, well, we know where they're at right now. They're sitting at home watching everybody else play. Or looking at other schools, whatever they want to do.
Yeah, that's probably most of it.
So let's say we got a busy schedule, so let's jump right in with the question of the week from last week, which was asking who, not necessarily who you think would be the coach for the Iowa men's basketball team next year, but who you wanted it to be. Clearly, I don't know that anybody really cares who it is, or they just don't have a preference on who they want. Because
I don't think anybody. Yeah, I don't think anybody want to stick their neck out on that one. But I thought it would just be fun anyway.
Yeah, it really shouldn't be sticking your neck out. It's just kind of who do you want,
Yeah.
It's always going to be a popular opinion of who you want, and it's not going to necessarily be who they're going to get either. So
exactly.
Who did you think when you if you had a choice, who would you want?
Well, I had a couple names that I had written down, and we talked about these names probably a month ago or a little more, maybe 6 weeks ago even, and I even did a little breakdown of why they would or wouldn't come to Iowa. And the two names that are still sitting out there for me are Jared Calhoun, the coach at Utah State, which they did not do well in their first round game. I'll give you that. They had probably their worst shooting night of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also heard his name mentioned along with the West Virginia job. So there may be a possibility he could end up at West Virginia. And that wouldn't surprise me a bit. I think they'd salivate to get him out there. The other one is Russell Turner. Russell Turner is the head coach at the University of California, Irvine. And I'm sure he would like to come out and get into a more than a one-bid league. Because right now, if you don't win the conference tournament, you don't get to go to the big tournament. So I think he would like to come out and see what it's like in the Big Ten, where you can get 8, maybe 10, 9, 10 teams in and not have to worry about, well, if we don't win the conference championship tournament, we don't get in. Regardless, we could go through the whole conference 29-0 or 20-0 or whatever their conference is and get left out by losing in the championship game. That to me, that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. How about you? You got any names you'd like to see?
Yeah, I've had one that I've kind of been keeping an eye on. Alan Huss at High Point.
Okay.
I think he'd be a pretty good fit here. He'd be a young guy. I think from a recruiting standpoint, he's got the North Carolina ties out there. There's the ability to pull in some of those kids from the East Coast. I'm kind of different than everybody else. I don't necessarily feel like we need to have an Iowa guy in here. I know that a lot of people think that there has to be an Iowa tie to a coach. I don't think there has to be. I think if you really want to elevate the program outside of the NIL portion of it, you need to get somebody who's maybe not from around here, somebody who has ties outside of Iowa. You want to be able to get some of the guys in Iowa, but let's be honest, the quality of talent that Iowa puts out is minuscule compared to some other states. And there's some good players come out of Iowa, don't get me wrong. But the volume of those players is much, much lower than it is in other parts of the country. And if you got a guy that's got some ties to the East Coast, a little bit more of those fertile recruiting grounds, I'd like to see that. I don't want him to be hamstrung and said, oh, well, I got to stick to the Midwest because, that's the Iowa way. Well, the Iowa way hasn't gotten it done for the last 15 years. So got to try something different.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but I think right now maybe we should jump over and talk about the women's basketball team and how they're doing in the tournament.
Yeah, the ones that are still in.
The ones that are still in. The only ones that were in from the University of Iowa anyway.
Yeah.
So Iowa played their first round game yesterday on Saturday. He played in Oklahoma City at the Lloyd Noble Center, which you and I have both been on.
Yep.
It really wasn't much of a game. Early on, Iowa kind of took possession of the game and just kind of said, well, you want me, you got to come get me. And that's kind of how they run away with it. That was a 92-57 Hawkeye win. Iowa was led in points by Ava Hayden. Yeah. I'm happy for that.
Balanced scoring effort.
Yeah, it was very balanced scoring. It was like, I think she had 15, and that was the high scorer for the day for Iowa anyway.
Lucy had 14, and Hannah maybe had 12.
I think Lucy had 12 points and 12 assists, so she had a double-double. Sydney Falter had 8 rebounds to the lead Iowa also.
Shocking.
It was, I've got written here, it was really nice to see all the players on the bench get to play and get some experience in the tournament. And they all contributed. Every one of them scored. There wasn't a single person on Iowa's team that was available to play that didn't score. And that was really nice. Taylor Stremlo got her first 2 points of the season.
No. Callie Levine.
Oh, Callie Levine. Not Taylor Stremlo. Callie Levine's who I meant to say. I don't know why. I had her in my mind, but I didn't say it.
Callie Levine.
Yeah, Callie Levine got her first 2 points of the season. The win puts Iowa into the second round, and they will play Oklahoma, the home team. Oklahoma did get a big win over Florida Gulf Coast, although it was a little closer, I think, than they would have liked.
I know, 81-58, but I think it was a lot closer.
It was close till the end. Yeah. I think Oklahoma kind of scored quite a bit in a row late in the game. And because I think at one point it was was it 59-54 or something like that? And then he just kind of finished out the game.
I was thinking I saw 61-54 at one point.
Okay.
But I had gone to run some errands, so I didn't see the box scores other than just popped up every once in a while. So
let's preview a little bit of the Oklahoma game for tomorrow. It starts at 3. I believe it's on ESPN, which is
3 Eastern.
3 Eastern, so 2 Central.
I thought it was 3 Eastern.
I thought it was 3. Yeah, let's double check that. But anyway, Iowa will play a team coached by former Iowa Hawkeye standout Jenny Lillis, now Jenny Baranchek. Oklahoma on the season is 26-7. They defeated Florida Gulf Coast yesterday. Oklahoma was led by center Reagan Beers, and if you remember her from last year, she played for Oregon State.
Oregon State.
Yeah, Oregon State.
That is 3 o'clock Central, by the way.
3 o'clock Central?
Yeah.
Okay. She had 25 points, 18 rebounds, so she's something you have to watch out for. It's pretty good sized girl. I think she's 6'6". But also you got to watch out for Skylar Vaughn, Vann Vaughn. She chipped in 24 points. So those two pretty much led the scoring for the most part for Oklahoma. So, yeah, I look forward to the game. I think it'll be much closer than a lot of people think. I know that there were people on ESPN's side of things thinking that Iowa would lose to Murray State, which I had to kind of laugh at.
But right now, ESPN's matchup predictor has Oklahoma has about a 73% win percentage chance on that. Yeah. I think that's astronomical.
I don't even know if it'll be that much, even them being at home. I'd say I'd give Oklahoma the edge for being at home, but maybe like a 52-48 type of deal. And I think they're pretty evenly matched.
I think 72.8 to 27.3 is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, you know how their bias is against the Big Ten since they don't have a contract with Iowa and the Big Ten anymore. So they're going to look for any way they can to make them look, in a bad light, I guess you could say.
I'm sure that if Iowa loses to Oklahoma, that they'll use that against Caitlin Clark in the WNBA somehow about not being great. So who knows?
Yeah, probably. They'll look for a reason to link the two together for no. There's really no obvious link, but they'll figure out a way. That's pretty much. I mean, do you have any comments on the games? Did you want to say anything about the Iowa-Oklahoma game or even the game against Murray State?
I think from what I've seen and what I've read, Reagan Beers is great within about 5.5, 6 feet from the basket. If you can push her out a little bit further, she's not so good. And I also think from what I've seen defensively, she's very slow-footed. She's kind of kind of a taller version of Addy O'Grady. And Oklahoma does have a tendency to turn the ball over a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, they have a higher turnover rate than Iowa.
But I'll tell you something. They did beat Tennessee at Tennessee this year.
Well, hey, it's Iowa should have beat Tennessee
Common
if they'd have
opponent,
just known how to break the press at the time.
Right. Yeah.
To me, I thought Tennessee was very beatable. There's not a team on the schedule this year that Iowa played that they lost to that they couldn't have beat.
Right. That was their worst loss of the season, 10 points. Everybody else was 8 or under usually, or mostly.
Typically, it was about 2 or 3 or under.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. You beat one of the 1 seeds, and you take another 1 seed to lose by 2 points on a very horrible call at the end of the game that cost you that. Yeah. It's just, I think almost 73% chance of winning that game is very disingenuous and very disrespectful to Iowa.
Yeah.
Especially the way they've been playing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But, stranger things have happened. I honestly, I think Iowa wins it straight up. So
they might. I mean, I don't think that would be a huge surprise to us if they did. But mostly might be to most people around the ESPN Center. I mean, they'll be shocked. Well, they'll probably be all outside looking straight into the sun because the end of their life just happened.
Yeah, they might jump off the edge of the roof of the building or something. Speaking
of jumping off the edge of the building, let's talk about the Iowa coaching search for men.
It's quite a segue.
That is quite a segue. Well, if you watch, and like I do, I tend to live on Facebook to watch what people post. And I only agree with about a third of it. But, people are so upset that it's all Beth Goetz's fault that we lost Darian DeVries. I'm like, Darian DeVries he was going to Indiana regardless.
Darian
I don't
DeVries
even think
did not
Iowa
want to come to Iowa.
I don't think
Iowa didn't have a chance.
Any opportunity. Yeah. He didn't want to
Indiana's been courting him since February.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
He had his mind made up where he was going, and he knew that Iowa couldn't match what Indiana could match in a salary, and they shouldn't. I mean, paying him that much money is ridiculous. He hasn't proven anything at the Power 5 high major level yet. I mean, he took a West Virginia team that was decimated, that had, a very slim roster when he got there, and put them in 19 wins, but they didn't make a tournament. I mean, they probably got screwed, but they didn't make the tournament. And, you took the same thing with Ben McCollum, who come in with an even more decimated Drake roster.
Yeah.
Brought in a bunch of D2 guys and won 31 games and went to the second game of the tournament.
Yeah.
I think her mind was, I think she knew that he wasn't feasible. She was going to put the feeler out. I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
But I think she knew that he wasn't going to be available. And, honestly, his buyout was going to be too much. Iowa was going to have to spend way too much to get him here. And I think that was selling your soul to get somebody that maybe could resurrect your program, but maybe they could. You don't know. I think you got to go somebody who is cheaper. The buyout's not expensive. And obviously you're looking young. You don't want to go somebody who's in their 50s or 60s. That's, you don't look for like a Rick Pitino type, which couldn't afford him anyway, but still, you got to go somebody young. You got to go somebody that's probably at a mid-major who did a rebuilding job, because that's exactly what they're going to have to do at Iowa. And you want somebody that's proven to be able to do that. That's why I threw out Alan Huss. He brought High Point, who was, is this their 3rd year in Division I?
Yeah, sounds about right.
So, it's not like the Big South is a power conference by any means, but when you're taking basically you're taking a team to a brand new division, in your 3rd year and you're taking them to the NCAA tournament as a conference champion, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I figure the guy can coach if he can do that. And if he can coach, he probably can recruit too.
Yeah. I'm all in about the being young part. I'd like to see a guy that's hungry. He's young. He's anxious to get his name mentioned and get out and build himself a program and build it from the ground floor.
his way.
And just continue to, if you progress and get better and better and your teams get better and better, then you're going to have less and less, I guess, obstruction to getting good kids in. But you're still going to pay them. So I think if you start getting a lot of crowd, a big crowd, and you're pumping up the program and really getting everybody excited about it, I think the wallets will open to the point of they'll start getting a more of a donation from the people. Now, I do want to mention.
I think they already have.
Yeah, and I think
the wallets have already opened.
Yeah, I've been hearing things like that too. That now that McCaffrey's gone, the program, the people are wanting to come back that didn't care for him. So
yeah,
but on a sidetrack, I want to just kind of hijack this for a minute. I was sitting thinking about things about, everybody's talking about NIL. We can't compete with the Indianas. Well, we don't need to compete with the Indianas. They're just a little bit above us anyway. Indiana has big donors. So, I think Mark Cuban gave him $10 million. So that helps a lot. But you talk about Iowa, and I've said it on here before, that none of the Iowa coaches ever publicly mention the swarm. Not one of them. Never heard it, not one time. Now, publicly or in private or outside of a microphone and a camera, they might mention it, but they don't mention it on camera, and none of them do. None of the coaches. You didn't see Fran doing it. You don't see Ferentz doing it. You don't see anybody doing it. Rick Heller, I've never seen. Of course, he doesn't get a lot of airtime because it's a lesser sport.
Ferentz has had a commercial for the Swarm before.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Well,
but anyway.
What I think is happening is that potentially now, and this is just speculating on my part, that, and it makes sense, when you say to your coaches, let's leave the swarm alone, it's part of the reason why they don't get a lot of backing is because I think the upper management, like the Barbara Wilsons and on down, the vice president and on down the line, have gotten a hold of Beth and said, hey, we can't have you out there promoting the swarm. And I'll tell you for the reason why. Because when you're out sending letters out to alumni who have recently graduated from the lawyer program, the law program, or medicine, big time medicine, when you're sending those out and they're sending checks in, they're sending them into the general fund. They're not earmarking those funds that they want for the sports programs. So they're just basically saying, you want a donation? Here it is. I don't care how you spend it. Well, if you want to spend that money on facilities or on coaches or whatever the case may be, that's fine. But they look at, if I'm Iowa, I'm looking at the Swarm as a competitor. Why would you promote something and ask people to donate to a sports related cause when you're already asking people to donate for the general fund so that they can build facilities, maybe get a new field or fund the band to go on trips? Maybe it's the whatever club, they're giving them money to so they can go do things. So right now they feel like, they can't control the Swarm. It's not in their power to control it. It's a private entity that Brad Heinrichs has created, that he works with Iowa, but Iowa can't control that money. So what they're saying is why would I cut my hand off to provide you with something? So they're not going to go out and let the Swarm and actively promote the Swarm. So then that takes away from their general fund money, because people are only going to give so much. They've got kids and families and other school loan debts, maybe that kind of thing. So they're only going to donate so much. So when they send them out these little pamphlets and have little money things in there, donate please, $25 here, $25, that all goes to the general fund that Iowa University has 100% control of, because that's a donation to the university. When you go out and donate to the Swarm, that's not university controlled. That is completely separate. Now, like I said, they do work with the university on it. But, the reason why I believe that you don't, as a university, promote the Swarm is because you're legitimately telling donors you can donate to both, which a lot of them don't. They'll just donate once. and say, here's your money for the year. I'm done. I'm my tax donation and all that for the tax deductible thing. They're not going to sit there and continually, oh, well, here's a check for Swarm. There you go. Here's a check for the general fund. Here you go. That's not how it works. That's not how people are going to do things. I mean, there might be one or two out there that does that, but for the most part. So Iowa University feels like they're in competition with the Swarm for money, for funding. Donations. I shouldn't say funding, donations. And so that's why they probably don't actively promote it on the public air, that, they won't say on microphone, hey, go out and support the Swarm. We really need the money. Because, and I've never heard that. And you said you did, but I've never seen anything regarding Iowa coaches and the Swarm.
Well,
so that's my thought is, am I wrong?
Play devil's advocate on that.
Okay.
So basically what it comes down to is the university doesn't have control. And that's what it comes down to, because the funds are used for the same, I'm not saying that the general fund is used for just for sports, but
it's not.
If they donate to the Swarm and you still have your donors that donate to the university that don't give a rat's rear end about sports, there's a bunch of those out there. You still have your general fund that funds your, Tippy College of Business or whatever, and
right.
buildings and whatnot. But then you don't have to use that general fund money to pay the athletes, which you're going to have to do. So now you've got that Swarm money that takes care of that. Now, that to me seems like a very bad business model to say, well, we don't want you donating to this because I think you're going to get more people that would be willing to donate to a sports program than to the general fund. People want to see their sports programs flourish. They don't care if the band has a new tuba. They don't care if the College of Business has a new desk. They care that the football team wins 10 games a year and the basketball team goes to the NCAA tournament and gets to the second week, at least. That's what they care about. That's what a majority of the fans or the people that are associated with the university, in my opinion, care about. So you're really cutting your donorship off by doing that, if that's what they're doing. I'm not saying I disagree with you. That's probably right. But I think that's a very poor business model to go on, with the fact that you've got the general fan like myself, or you, or the people that are listening to this podcast in most cases. They're not going to donate to the general fund anyway.
Right.
They're going to donate to the Swarm, perhaps, just like we would do. Right. Anything that we would make, any profits that we would make off of this show, we want to donate to the Swarm, earmarked for whatever we choose it to be. If it's basketball at the time, it's basketball, whatever. We're not going to donate to the general fund. So now you've cut our donorship off and you're losing that money because you're not promoting it. That's my thoughts on it.
Do you think, though, that when they send those letters out to the alumni that have graduated from the business schools, the lawyers, the doctors, the anestheticians, everybody who makes, pretty good money, and they send that money out, or that donation sheet out to them and say, please donate, we need this, that, and the other. Do you think that they really look at that and say, well, I want to donate to sports, but here it is, so I'm just going to donate. And they give them the money, and then the school does what they want with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that happens a lot. Whereas if you say, we support the Swarm, and you actually put another little check mark on the donation page, it says, donate to the general fund, donate to Swarm. I think you're going to find most of them are going to donate to the Swarm. And that's going to cut the hand off of them for wanting to build facilities. Well, not necessarily sports facilities. I'm talking about buildings for like the science and that kind of thing. I'm talking general stuff.
Right. So, and I don't know how, I know the university can't really be part of the collective, but there's got to be a way to do something where, let's say a general ticket for a football game costs $75. Let's just say. I don't even know what they are anymore because I haven't been for
that might be on the low side now.
Anyway, let's just use 75. Let's say it's $100. Let's just say it's $100 a game for easy math. I play 7 games at home. That's $700 per ticket. Okay, increase
Season
that by
ticket.
$10 a game. That $10 per game, that's $70 per person times 70,000 people, or let's say season tickets, you'd say 50,000. Let's say That's $350,000 that could go directly to your general sports funds for paying NIL. That's just from football season.
But they don't do that, and they don't have any.
I don't know if they. Yeah, and I
reason
don't
not
know
to,
from
or to do that.
And I also wonder. The other thing I kind of wonder is, do they not promote it because they're afraid that the NCAA is actually going to grow a spine at some point and start sanctioning these universities that are overpaying on their NIL and just basically throwing the cash bags underneath the table that are no longer underneath the table like they used to do? And they're going to say, the NCAA is going to throw that backbone and say, "Oh no, we're going to put some limitations on this." And Iowa's like, "Yep, our hands are clean. We haven't done any of this crap."
Well, right now there's no rules, so there's nothing to be scared of being illegal. So, in my opinion, you're putting yourself further behind.
I mean, it's the NCAA. You could do something not illegal now that's illegal in 10 years, and they'll retroactively say you did it back then.
Can't do that.
That's depending on who you are. No, if it's Kansas, you're okay. Or if it's Duke or whoever, you're fine. But if it's Western Kentucky, you're screwed. I'm just saying, just saying what everybody else is thinking. But I get it. It's the Wild West, and you can do whatever you want right now. But at some point, there's probably going to be some regulations on it. There's going to have to be, otherwise it's just basketball free agency and it's minor league basketball.
I just feel like you're not doing yourself a service. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not playing the game the way everyone else is playing it. If you want to play, little British sister sitting up and nobody ever does anything to her and she's always smiling. That's Iowa right now. You need to get in there and do what you need to do. You need to get in there and actually work the system. There's, like everybody else,
play by the rules that are there right now.
NCAA is doing.
Play by the rules that are there right now. Not what you think will happen in 5 years.
I mean, think about during Prohibition. They didn't go back to somebody before Prohibition and say, "Well, you drank back 2 years ago before Prohibition," and throw them in jail. They're not going to do that. So
I wasn't alive back then, so
I wasn't either. But
anyway, I just throwing that out there of maybe that's why Iowa doesn't do what everybody else does. They want to keep their hands clean. I don't. There's something going on because other places are promoting their collectives, and Iowa's not. And I don't know if it's the fact that it's not that the general fund should be that big of an issue, because the revenue sharing throughout the Big Ten is much higher than most conferences. And then if you've got other conferences that aren't worried about it, why is Iowa so worried about it? Is it because of all the lawsuits they've had to pay? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Probably all the things that Bart has screwed up.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I don't know. I just hope that they get something settled quickly for a coach and they allow him to, they provide him with a decent level of NIL money, whether it be Swarm or just collective, not collective, but revenue sharing. That could throw that in there to help keep the kids there. They're gonna get some portion of it anyway. Yeah, I just hope that they come up with something soon. Now, the rumors are this weekend is Ben McCollum. I don't, early on this morning I was watching it. It's a done deal. They're just ready to sign the paperwork right now and everything's going to be good. There's going to be an announcement later on today. Well, 3 hours later, no announcement, and somebody gets on there and says, well, apparently there was a sticking point somewhere with this contract and we don't know what's going to happen. So, they can either get by it or they can part ways. So at this point, we're still in limbo. I'm wondering if they're just kind of holding off to do it like on Monday or Tuesday. You said probably better be do it on Tuesday because they don't want to interfere with the women's game. And I get that. So I guess right now we don't know anything. We don't know what's going on. We don't know if there's been other coaches contacted. Right now, I think it sounds like they put all their eggs in the McCollum basket. And if that basket falls to the floor and breaks all the eggs, then I guess I was going to have to lay some new eggs and go out somewhere else.
Well, if they haven't interviewed any other people, then they've dropped the ball.
Well, I said that earlier.
Assume that your top guy is going to want to come there.
Well, I said that earlier in the week when people were talking about, we don't have a coach yet. And I said, well, maybe I was looking at a coach that's still playing in the tournament. Maybe and they have to finish out their season. You can't. Not all coaches are just going to go, oh, okay, well, I took this team to 30 wins and 3 losses, and I'm just going to drop everything, and I'm just going to go be Iowa's coach, and whatever happens in the tournament, to hell with them. But that's not how. That's if you're a good coach,
that's not a coach I would want.
That's not a coach you'd want personally. If you lure a coach away from a school that's going to the tournament, I got to wonder about that guy's character.
Yeah,
straight up.
Yeah.
But
we'll see. The other name that I've heard is Richard Pitino, which you and I've talked about that before. Of trouble seems to follow him wherever he goes. But
yeah, seems like he stays 1 foot ahead of the law. Maybe
he's at a redemption crossroads that his second chance is coming. I don't know.
He's in New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
New Mexico or New Mexico State?
Well, whichever one.
I think it's New Mexico State. I don't know.
Anyway, if you're stuck in New Mexico, that's kind of like, how far away from the world can you get?
Yeah. It's like being stuck in West Virginia. He's at New Mexico, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't want to dog anybody that's from those states, but when you think of basketball, and you don't think of Richard Pitino being at New Mexico, it just seems like a place to go hide for him.
And I think the thing that would worry me the most about him is he had a lot of talent come through Minnesota and didn't do anything with it. That's kind of been the knock on Fran McCaffrey too. He had a lot of talent come through Iowa and didn't do anything with it.
Right.
He had a National Player of the Year, the guy that probably should have had it 2 years in a row. They didn't get to the second weekend. They didn't get out of the first or second round. Now, granted, 1 year they got the tournament ripped away from them, so who knows how that would have gone. But
they would have been a 1, 2, or 3 seed that year. They were really good. Yeah. They had a good year. But
they were a 2 seed the next year.
What if?
Yep. Anyway.
Okay, so we're going to move on.
Let's hit the spring sports.
Yeah, let's hit some spring sports. Absolutely. Iowa baseball had a heck of a week. Yeah. They went 4-0. They beat University of Illinois Chicago 4-1 on Tuesday at home.
Game.
Yeah, and then they were hosting the Ohio State Buckeyes on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And those games turned out Iowa winning Friday 12-0 in 7 innings, 12-5 on Saturday, and Iowa won again on Sunday 18-2. So we had a 4-0 week. Pretty good.
14-8 overall now.
I'm getting to that. I have to turn my page. Yep, I was 14-8 and 7-2 in the conference. This week is a Tuesday game at Illinois State in Normal, Illinois, which I don't think there's anything normal in Illinois, is there really? Anyway. And then they have a triple header Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with Minnesota at Minnesota. So, I don't know anything about Minnesota. I didn't have time to look them up. Yeah, they used to be pretty decent, but then I think the last few years they've kind of fallen on harder times. But they used to be pretty good.
Sounds like the men's baseball team is getting a little bit of things figured out,
right?
And getting their rotation shored up a little bit. Sounds like the starters have been pretty good the last 2 weeks, and I don't think that's been the problem with them. As the starters haven't been the problem; it's been the bullpen. The back end of the bullpen has been a problem for 2 years. So as long as if they can get that taken care of and they can get the starters deeper into a game, they're pretty good potential for that team.
It seems like the bats have really come alive. I mean, putting up 12 and 18 in a 3-game set with Ohio State.
Wind was blowing hard today, and there was a lot of balls flying out of the yard, but wind's still blowing hard for Ohio State, and they weren't putting the ball in the air. So
Exactly. So, yeah. Good going there, Hawkeye baseball fans. We like to see that. Let's talk about Iowa softball. They only had 2 games this week, and both games were UCLA at home. It was a Saturday-Sunday thing. It's kind of weird that they didn't play a game in the middle of the week. Usually they do, but okay. So they lost to UCLA on Saturday 8-0. Now it was number 5 at UCLA. Okay, so they're pretty good.
Not slouch.
Yeah, no slouch. But then if you check on them on Sunday, which I'm looking at the score right now, Iowa 7, UCLA 4. So Iowa got their first win this season against a team with a number in front of their name.
Nice.
And so that puts Iowa at 19-9, and I think they beat Indiana twice last weekend, 6-5 and 5-4, something like that.
3-1.
So that makes them 3-1 in the conference. I mean,
can't ask.
I will take that.
Yeah,
I'll take that. And they're 19-9 overall. You know, you go down south, and I've done this. I've gone down south and played. Those teams down there are miles ahead of you because they've had the time to go out and play outside. Whereas Iowa, you get in that weather and it's nasty and you don't want to go outside in the snow and throw a ball around. You have to play inside in arenas or gymnasiums or whatever you're allowed. It's just not the same. The ball doesn't bounce the same. It's not the same. So you have to kind of feel like Iowa did pretty well, kind of beat the teams they were expected to beat, but then lost to the ones they were expected to lose to. But you get them back home, and you've had all that experience down south. Now you've got to come back home, and it just feels like more natural to you. And you've gotten your at bats down south, and you're coming home, and you're starting to feel it. This is the time right now that they should be hitting pretty much their stride. This is about the time before they start getting towards the end of the season. They start getting tired. Mm-hmm. This is when they should be peaking.
Well, it's funny you mentioned taking any avenue to practice or throw the ball around or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, it's a different story when I coached a little league team, but we didn't have practice fields available to us at times, so we practiced in parking lots. And yeah, you're right. The ball does not bounce the same out of a parking lot that it does out of a grass infield.
No.
But if I always told those kids, if that ball hits a rock and you can still field it, you can field anything on the field at that point.
Yeah.
You take what you can get.
Depends on how many rocks were there left over from the winter when they go and stack. Mm-hmm. There are piles of snow on the field and there's rocks in it. And they have to go back and.
I think my team ended up finishing 16-1 that year. So.
Yeah. Yeah. We both have had success coaching baseball. I have, and so have you. So, spring sports are going right now pretty hot and bothered and getting going, and really nice to see them winning, especially the baseball team for me. That's my love. I don't know. Is there anything else is there any other topics you want to hit before we ask the question of the week? This is going to be a relatively short one today.
No, I just have kind of been watching a little bit of the NCAA tournament. Of course, my love of basketball kind of is waning just because Iowa's not in it. It's a little more casual watching, but watching Iowa play this year and watching teams in the tournament, you can definitely see how much a change was needed.
Yeah.
Watched Drake last night against Texas Tech, and that was a 14 point final. 81-67, 66, something like that.
Yeah.
Nowhere near indicative of how close that game really was. That game was a 2 or 3 possession game with about 3 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So, kudos to Drake for, and that's kind of what, I think as a fan and guys that are thinking that McCollum is probably the guy for Iowa, you're probably sitting back watching that game thinking, I like to see him have success, but I want to see him lose so we can get him. But you want to see it be a close game. You want to see it be a competitive game. And I think that's what you got. As an Iowa fan, that's probably what you were expecting. Texas Tech's just a little bit more athletic and a little deeper in the bench. I think they said that he came in and started the season with 9 guys on the roster? 9 scholarship players on the roster?
You talking about Drake or you talking about Texas A&M?
Yeah,
Drake. Drake? Yeah, I think they had a complete turnover. I think Ben McCollum
one of the kids from one of the kids at Oklahoma or at Texas Tech was on the Drake roster last year, that Overton.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay, let's get this because we got a little time here. Why don't we talk about Ben McCollum a little bit? He seems to be the odds-on favorite for the job, whether it is it or isn't, I don't know. He was born in Iowa City. I don't know if that really makes any difference, but and then his family moved to, I think, the Storm Lake area.
Lake.
Yeah, and he played, I think, high school ball up there. And then I think when he went to go play college ball, he decided to go to Northwest Missouri, I believe.
I thought he went to Nyack.
He might have went to Nyack for the first 2 years, and then he went to Northwest Missouri after that. And then he was on the coaching staff after he graduated, and then worked his way up to head coach. And he's won 4 national titles in Division II, which is not easy. It's the same level as D1. It's just you don't quite have the talent, so it's the competition's the same. There's no real difference in competition
levels comparatively.
Yes, they're comparative. Then he takes his team, and I know this Bennett Sturts is a pretty good player. I think it was Bennett. Is it Bennett?
Yes.
Okay. And he brought him to Drake, and then Mascari and Mitch Mascari, I think his name is, and a few of the other guys. And they turned basically a Division II team into a Division I team that actually competed really, really well. So, let me ask you this question real quick. If Iowa was to pull the trigger and Ben McCollum says, okay, out to Iowa, and he becomes the next coach, do you think that there's any way at all that Sturts and whoever's left on that Drake team would follow him if he asked them to? Or do you think he'd just say, okay, I'll take Bennett and everybody else can stay at Drake?
I think if he leaves, they might want to follow him. I feel like with the performance that Sturts had this year, he's going to have bigger fish on him.
Oh, maybe. But maybe he loves his coach and wants to stay with his coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's possible. And if that's the case, Iowa would be lucky to get him. But I think you're going to have the Kansas States, those type of things, they're going to be sniffing around. Iowa State's obviously going to sniff around because, they're transfer U.
Yeah.
So they can't bring a high school kid in and develop him because he doesn't know how, but he gets those guys that are already halfway developed and puts them on a court, which, hey, whatever you need to do to win, that's what you're there for. But I prefer to go about it a little bit differently, I guess. But I just think I've heard rumors that Michigan's already tried to lure him away dangled $1 million in front of his face, and that he's got a girlfriend at Kansas State, and just who knows? Depends on where his loyalty's at. Get the girlfriend to transfer to Iowa. That's or have a long distance relationship for a year. You've had it for this year because she's been at K-State and you've been at Drake.
Yeah,
it's not like that's something a whole lot different.
It's only another 2 hours further from Des Moines to Iowa City.
And quite honestly, don't predicate your career based on some girl that you're dating now, because you may not. That you change your future for somebody like you do something like that, then you're probably going to regret it the rest of your life. You're going to hold it over them, or if it doesn't work out, you've cut your nose off to spite your face.
Yeah.
So you can't make that decision based on your relationship.
Okay, let's say, for fun and hypothetical, let's say that McCollum's hired. He goes to the players that are currently in the transfer portal but still going to school at Iowa, Dix's and Price Sanfords and that. I think Owen and Brock might be gone regardless. Do you talk to them about staying, or do you just say, you know what, I'm going to bring in my own players wherever I can find them. I'm going to open up recruiting. I'm going to do all of this stuff, and I'm going to have a completely different team than what was here. Do you do that, or do you just try to talk some of those kids into coming back?
I think you approach them and you talk to them and try to bring a couple of them back. Some of them, I would say, let them walk.
Yeah.
And I look at it from an aspect of what type of culture am I building and what type of philosophy do I have coaching wise? So if I look at a guy and I say, oh, well, yeah, he's a pretty good basketball player, but he couldn't play defense to save his life, and I've got
Right.
to have guys that can defend, and I don't know that I can teach him in a year. Let him walk.
Right.
Somebody else have that problem. Let him go be offensive for another team and give up 15 layups a game, whatever. I mean, you're not really going to, are you really losing much from that aspect? If you've got a guy, okay, let's say you've got a guy that scores 15 a game, but his defense is so bad that he gives up 15. Are you really gaining anything?
No.
No. So, yeah, from an offensive standpoint, and that's what a lot of people see is the offensive. They don't look at the defensive numbers. They'll say, oh, well, you're losing 15 points a game. Well, I'm really losing no points per game because he's given up the same amount that he's scoring. So you let him walk. But I think you go to guys like a Josh Dix and you go to Price Sanford and try to convince them to stick it out. But if they ultimately say, no, I just don't see this as a good fit, you let them walk.
Yeah.
Because like I said last week, you're talking about a bunch of guys from a 17 and 16 team that don't know how to play defense. Yeah, they can score, but they don't know how to play defense. Does it really matter if they're back or if they're gone?
Well,
you can probably replace somebody
no.
from a production standpoint. Anybody on that team can be replaced from a production standpoint of may not be 17 points a game. They may only get 12 points a game, but they're lockdown defenders and they don't let their guys score. That's better than that 17. Who cares if you score 90 points a game? If you score 70 points a game, you're still winning and you're holding your other team to 55. I'd rather do that than score 90 and give up 95. Just makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, 70 points a game or 65, 70, 75 points a game. And I've seen the numbers from McCollum. You could look at his team at Drake and say, oh, well, it's Licklider too. Well, he adapted to what he had. His teams at Northwest Missouri State were high-powered, high-scoring teams with good defensive teams. But he didn't have the athletes at Drake to do that, so he slowed it down and played to their strengths. Exactly what I said that Iowa needed to do when they knew they couldn't defend anybody. Limit the possessions that they have to defend. But they wouldn't do it. It was balls to the wall, fast as you can go, put up the shot as fast as you can. We don't want to go more than 8 seconds into the shot clock before there's a shot going up. Okay, well, you just took a game that, 70 possessions a game and made it 95 possessions a game. Now you got 25 more possessions you have to defend against.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it anyway. So, to me, I don't care if any of them walk. They can all walk. I don't care. Replace them with somebody new. If they don't want to buy in, they don't want to play defense, and they don't want to be there at Iowa, I don't care if they're there or not. If they want to chase the paycheck, go for it.
Well, there's only two names that I've heard that hasn't hit the portal, and that's Seydou Traore and Chris Taggio. Those are the only two that I know of that haven't left yet or haven't transferred yet.
He's scholarship player this year, so he hasn't put his name in the portal yet.
Who's that?
Carter Kingsbury.
I thought he was a senior.
I thought he was just a junior, but yeah, maybe he was a senior. I don't know.
I thought he participated in the senior day events.
Probably has that senior COVID year, though.
Yeah.
I mean, with the fact that he was a end of the bench guy, he probably could have said, well, my freshman or sophomore year was a redshirt year.
Well, but I think you have to file paperwork on that.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that works, but if he's available, he hasn't put his name in, so.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Traore and Taggio are the only two that haven't. And honestly, the kid from Miami hasn't either because he just signed. He's signed, so he's technically on the roster.
Yeah.
But two of the three recruits have decommitted.
Yeah.
The only one that hasn't is that Badu Diakite.
But the one that decommitted that I heard about today,
Christo?
Yeah, he left his options open to return if everything was, if things turn out the way he thought they might, or he wants them to, or the new coach talks him back or whatever. I think he's still open to Iowa. But all I care about right now personally is if the team can play defense, I think you give yourself a much better chance than if you only play one. If you can play defense decent and play offense decent, you got a better chance than playing no defense and good offense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's a matter of, and that's, I think to me, that's telling a little bit the fact that Briscoe decommitted today.
Yeah.
That I think maybe there's some smoke to the fact that McCollum maybe isn't coming. I don't know why you would wait until today or maybe he is coming and that's the guy he doesn't want to play for. I don't know. He's why would you wait till today when your other coach has been gone for a week and 2 days? Other guys have jumped out of there. I don't know. Maybe it's just thinking about it. I don't know. It just seems to be that's a little bit telling that, hey, we've had all these rumors that there's a deal basically finalized. Then all of a sudden this kid decommits and it's like, oh, well, there's a sticking point. That seems a little sus to me.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that, during the off time when Drake was getting ready for their tournament, the NCAA tournament, that maybe he was in contact with Beth Getz over at Iowa and they were secretly, when he had opportunity to, work out some things and express interest, and she expressed interest back, blah, 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 and all that stuff. Well, then now that Drake's season's completely, is over, now they can get a chance to really start hammering things out. And, I hope the University of Iowa decides to take, you may have to concede a little to get who you want. You're not just going to go out and say, it's $4 million a year. It's $1.5 million NIL. Plus, we'll give you another $1 million for a revenue sharing, and it's going to be for 3 years, not more than that. And he may say, 3 years is not enough to rebuild this. I need 4 or 5. Sometimes I think Iowa just needs to concede a little bit to get the guy, if that's who they decide they want.
Yeah.
Pay him what he's worth and get it done.
And if that's the problem, then that's a problem with the university. That's not.
Agreed.
Him.
Agreed.
I think regardless of whether it's Iowa or not, I think McCollum is gone from Drake.
Yeah, I think somebody will pick him up, West Virginia or anybody. I think Nico Medved is going to
Xavier's
Minnesota.
Looking for one now.
Xavier is?
Xavier's going to be looking for one. Sean Miller's going to Texas.
That's a Big East school. That's pretty attractive. They put a lot of teams in the tournament.
Yep. So the dominoes are falling at this point. So you've got to think, well, he's not going to be at Drake next year. I can almost say that with certainty. Somebody's going to snag him up, and it's going to either be, to me, I think it's either going to be Iowa or West Virginia.
Somebody's going to make him an offer he just can't refuse.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think if it's him, I think we'll know by Tuesday. If it's not, and it goes beyond Tuesday, let's say if it goes beyond Tuesday, it's not going to be Ben McCollum.
I think if it goes beyond Tuesday, I think there's going to be some people about ready to jump off a ledge.
Mm-hmm. They might be wanting to lynch her.
Patience.
Yeah, just be patient.
It'll all work out. So
all right, let's wrap up with a question of the week.
We had a nice viewership this last week on our last podcast, and I'd like to see that continue. But I'd also like to see of those people, I'd like to see it hit the subscribe button. Just doesn't cost you anything. It just tells you, basically, it gives you a heads up when we have a new podcast out. And actually, it does help us because of, the more we get, the more apt it's going to be to put us in their search engines and higher up and that kind of thing. So it does help us, but it doesn't help us monetarily at this point. So, we're not making anything on whether you subscribe or not, and it doesn't cost anything for you. So that would be a good thing to do. If you remember to do it, do it. If you don't, maybe the next time you're in town or want to watch, you could slap that thing down there and get it going.
Yep. You want to lead us out with a question?
Before we do that, let's get to the question of the week. The question of the week this week is when was the last time that the Iowa women did not make a Sweet 16? at least a Sweet 16. There you go. That's the question. And shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah. And tell us who prevented them from going to the Sweet 16.
Yeah. And even if you want for bonus points, you can tell us the score.
Yeah. It shouldn't be too difficult to find.
Yeah, it's not going to be a tough one this time. Hopefully we can get some participation on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up. Like you said, doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow, whatever.
Share.
Share it to other people. Again, this is just our opinions on things. We don't have any inside knowledge to anything. It's just what we think, and tell us if you don't agree with it. That's fine. We understand that. Not everybody's supposed to agree with you. That's why they're called opinions. But yeah, make sure you check us out on Facebook. Catch us on Spotify, TikTok, Twitter, pretty much all
YouTube
the
Short.
social media avenues.
YouTube Shorts.
YouTube Shorts. Yep. If you don't want to watch the whole podcast, I will try to do better about tagging those as to what their content really is. If it's men's basketball, football, women's basketball, whatever. Try to make sure that that's a little more clear. I think somebody brought that suggestion up, which I'm good with that. I like suggestions. I like that. Whatever helps out. So,
yeah.
All right. I think that's it. Oh, check out the merch store. Anything that's bought in the merch store that we would technically make money off of, which is not a lot, is going to the Swarm. So anything you do put in there, it would those proceeds would go towards men's basketball at this point. That's where we'd like to earmark that money for right now. But as the seasons progress, we could switch to football if we needed to, or women's basketball, whatever. We'd be open to suggestions of what you'd like the money to go to as well. That's pretty much it. So
okay,
we'll wrap it up this week and call it good. We'll look forward to next week. Hopefully we're getting ready to talk about another big win and maybe a couple of big wins for the women.
And maybe a new coach.
And maybe a new coach, yeah. And we'll start getting into some spring football before long, too.
Yeah.
It'll be starting up. So, stay tuned.
We'll end it with a Go Hawks. You ready? Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.